All right, all right. Welcome to Pan-African Perspectives, your weekly live stream where we deal with all things related to the continent of Africa and advancing Africa and making sure this gets back to its rightful place on the world stage. We dive into the real life experiences of visiting Africa, moving to the continent, investing in African ventures, and buying land. Our mission is to support an independent Africa and empower African people on the continent or in the diaspora. So whether you're currently in Africa, you've recently migrated somewhere outside of the continent, your ancestors were trafficked during the slave trade, or you're a foundational Black American, this live stream is for you. So I'm Joe Hatagwa, your host and the founder of Authentic African. Each week, I'll share my experiences living, traveling, and investing on the continent of Africa. From time to time, I'll also be interviewing others who have made the move to the continent or who have businesses on the continent and offering their insights and stories. So today, we have a special guest. Ursula Garrett is a Black American CPA with 25 plus years of experience with clients as a practicing CPA, as I mentioned, specializing in tax and accounting for individuals, families, and businesses in California. She's obviously qualified as a CPA. Her particular experience is with small businesses with a focus on new business startups. She actually has a place where you could subscribe to her free email tax and business advice and tips weekly at cpagarrett.com. All of that's in the description. And then you can follow her journey on ursulagarrett.com. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk to her is because she's been to the continent many times. South Africa a couple of times, Zambia, Ghana, Botswana. She's been to Zimbabwe, and she has ownership stake in the travel and tourism business there. And as of November of last year, her first trip to Sierra Leone, she has made 3 additional trips, or she had made 3 trips in the 6 months since first going in November. She's also in the process of working on her citizenship. She has 3 main programs she's working on: Empower Her, Women's and Girls Empowerment, Village Rising, Village Sustainability, and then Sierra Leone Investment and Mentorship Solutions for entrepreneurship support. So she focuses on mentoring entrepreneurs, helping them become investment ready, and providing non-monetary support in other cases, such as subsidizing products for them, like clean burning stoves and business coaching, etc. So with that, I want to bring on Ursula. Welcome to the live stream, Ursula. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I want to thank you for agreeing to do this live stream. So we were connected through Dory from Salon Hidden Gems or Stafford Lodge. You guys might remember Dory and I have done a couple of interviews about everything she's doing with Salon Hidden Gems and bringing folks to Sierra Leone. And she mentioned that you and I should talk, and I'm glad we did, because as soon as we talked, I was very impressed by all of what you've been doing in this short time. Because many folks who I talk to who go to Sierra Leone, they complain about not being given direction or, not being followed up with, not knowing what to do. And you didn't complain, you just did. Right. And you did a lot in a short amount of time. And so I definitely want to get to that. And so that people can hear about what you're doing on the continent a little bit more in detail than what I just said. But I also want to talk a little bit about your background. So I did a lot of talking. Is there anything in your bio that I missed? I feel like I missed you're an author too, but can we talk a little bit about what I missed in your bio so that everybody's aware of what you've been up to?
Sure. So yes, as you mentioned, I've been a CPA for over 25 years, but in all honesty, I've been preparing tax returns since I was 14 years old. So that's 45 years now that I've been preparing tax returns. Just never thought it would be what I would do for a living. I worked on Wall Street back in the 80s. I was in the Army for a few years back in the early mid 80s. So yeah, I've been around and I've done a lot of things. My interest is varied. But my specialty, the thing that I'm truly passionate about is entrepreneurship. So when I wrote my books, one was about finances and one was about, growing your business.
Sure.
And I'm actually in the process of rewriting my book, Plateau to Summit, specifically for Sierra Leone. And I'm trying to use some Creole and some words, phrases that the locals will understand, because I find that I've been coaching a group of about 30 young prospective entrepreneurs, and sometimes what I say doesn't come across quite so well.
Sure.
And I thought, you know what, if I could say it in Creole or give examples in Creole, because I do usually use an interpreter.
Okay.
Most of the time when I'm there,
Sure.
because, you know, the communication isn't always the best. I always have an interpreter with me, and it works just fine. It's my ears are getting a little more in tune. And Creole is a lot like the Geechee Gullah that I grew up with in South Carolina.
Sure.
And so I can pick up, I'm starting to pick up more and more of the phrases. And it's just a matter of time before I become fluent.
Absolutely, it is, and it is very helpful to be fluent in Creole when you're in Sierra Leone, for sure. And at the very least, understanding it and hearing it. One of the tricks that I use for written Creole is I use Google Translate. It's not perfect, but Creole was added to Google Translate 2.5 years ago, and it's been a game changer for me when I communicate through WhatsApp with folks. It helps a lot, because the way I pronounce it in my head or the way I heard it is not how it's written. And so that's always been really helpful. Okay, so you mentioned that you grew up in the Gullah Geechee with Gullah Geechee roots. I wanted to ask you, is that how you became aware of the DNA process with Sierra Leone? How did you become aware of this process and Sierra Leone citizenship? I'm interested to hear how you came to that process.
If only I had learned about it that far back. In all honesty, I just learned about it last year during Black History Month, February 2024.
Okay.
And African Ancestry, they were running a special, and I go, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I was looking for. And I'm looking at, I don't think I looked at it 5 minutes before I was signing up. What can I get? How can I find out? And I ordered my kit. I got it back and found out that my maternal ancestry line went to the Timne people of Sierra Leone. And then I was on there trying, when's the next trip? When's the next trip? They typically do one in April and one in November. And by the time I got my results back, it was too late for the April trip.
Sure.
So then the November trip came, and I kept saying, when are we going to get the information? When is it? When is it? When is it? And they were kind of late last year. I think it was like 5-6 weeks before the actual trip, before they announced it. And I was like, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to make it a point to be there. And I did. I cleared my schedule. I did whatever I had to. I was going to be there to get my citizenship.
Nice. And so you were very involved in the process. You went through it. I was actually there a couple weeks after you guys had all arrived, and so I kind of I had heard some insight into what all the things that happened during that time. But can you remind everybody who's working on getting citizenship what the process looks like? Right, you did your first trip. There is a secondary trip, right? But can you walk us through what the process was like for you, and what you understand the next stage is for you in order to get your citizenship?
Right. And so the process, it starts with all the paperwork you have to do before you actually leave to go to the continent, go to Sierra Leone. So you have to, get all these police report, FBI report, and those sometimes can take time. It can be a little challenging, but leave a week or 2, 3, 4, whatever you need to get it. And, and you get your vaccinations and all this stuff. So I was so excited. It's like, okay, as soon as I got one task done, I was doing another.
Yeah.
And so when you actually get there, so we were the first group where it was a 2-trip process. Before you would go in 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, you got your citizenship. Now you go for your first trip, and then you have to wait a year and go back for your second trip to get your citizenship. So when we were there, we visited some historical and cultural sites. We learned about Sierra Leone and West Africa in general, get a lot of education that we don't get here in the States.
Sure.
And so that was a really important part for me, just learning about our ancestors and learning about what life is like in Sierra Leone, because life on the African continent in general is very different than life here in the States, yet in a lot of ways it's the same. So for me, I find the process to be very, for me, it was exciting. It was enlightening. It was more than what I could hope for. Everywhere we went, when I first got there, that first week and actually beyond, but I noticed it more the first week. People were saying, "Welcome home,"
right,
or "Welcome," and we had several different welcoming ceremonies through. I think Dory's company, Salone Hidden Gems, was the one that was leading the tour group, not only for hers but for African ancestry. So it was sometimes it would be the two groups we would get together, and so I got to be with different people than I think there was like 10 of us, 10, 12 of us that went through African ancestry, and then there was another 8 or so that went through Salone Hidden Gems. But sometimes we would do things together, and sometimes we would, do things on our own. But the whole process is just, I found out that we actually went places and did things and learned things that natives did not know and had not done yet. And so that was again, eye-opening just about the culture. And there were a lot, because things are done differently. I went with a plan. So not everybody did that. I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I'd done a lot of research between the time I found out in April to the time I actually went in November. I had plenty of time in my mind. That was 7 months to make a plan. What am I going to do when I get there?
Sure.
So I researched, what are some of the challenges? What's needed? What can I expect? Because I'm always an entrepreneur right down to my bones.
Yep.
It's like, what kind of business can I form when I get there? And I found out some things about Sierra Leone. Like, I started one company, which was my, NGO, that only needed to start one company. It didn't matter whether it was an NGO or not, whether it was for profit, not for profit. Once you have one company registered, you can have as many companies as you want under that. It's like, oh, okay, that's a little different.
Yep.
And that was all I needed to hear. So then I started forming all these things, all these companies. And my goal when I went there was to make connections, to find local entrepreneurs to partner with. And then I found from the group that I went with, they were also looking for business opportunities, but they didn't have my background, so they didn't know how to do it. So that started the process of me finding, how can I use my experience working with entrepreneurs to find opportunities for others? And obviously I couldn't do it all in 3 weeks. So I did the 2 weeks that was organized with African ancestry and Salone Hidden Gems. And then I stayed an additional week. And that additional week that I stayed, I went back and reconnected with the family. Oh, I didn't mention that. So they took us to both the Timne and my brain just went blank.
Was it Mende as well?
Thank you. Timne and Mende Village. So we went to the Mende Village first. And I met this little girl that reminded me of me. So I have to go back to that village just so I can find her.
Sure.
And then I went to the Timne Village. And when we went to the Timne Village, they gave all the Timne participants a chance to get adopted into a family. So I got adopted into this family. And so that was with the group. But the following week that I stayed after the group left, I went back and connected with that family again. And I told them, okay, here's what I want to do. I said, I want to build a vocational training center here in this village. And the guy who's my papa is the male head of our family. He's a stakeholder and he owns lots of land in the village. He says, okay, how much land do you need? I don't know. How much is it going to take? I said, 3 acres. Okay, 3 acres is yours. So they started the process and they had the land surveyed and they gave me 3 acres of land, just like that. I didn't have to buy it. And it's very fertile land. It was already growing palm trees and coconut trees and banana trees. We actually had to cut some of the trees down to make a way so that we can build this vocational training center. And at this point, here we are about 6 months later. We have the septic completed. We dug a well. The well's done. Nice. I think they're putting in all the stuff to make the well, but they've already concreted, did the cement and the concrete or whatever they need to do for the septic. So we have septic done. And I just got the amended corrections to the plan today. I haven't had a chance to review them, but we're hoping It's probably going to be rainy season, and we may not get the foundation done before rainy season starts. But that was our goal, to try to get the foundation done. But by this time next year, I want that building to be complete and occupied, so we can start our vocational training. But that's what happens when you go in with a plan. I knew what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so for me, the whole process has just been really easy. The biggest key is finding the right people to work with.
Right. Right.
The first time I got there, the attorney that I was introduced to wasn't a good fit for me. And that's fine. Not everybody's going to be a good fit. So I then connected with my counterpart, an accountant. This is an accountant from Sierra Leone who had lived in the UK and actually the US for a bit. But he and his wife are both accountants, and they have their own firm, accounting and advisory firm in Freetown. And they've been like my eyes and ears, and they take care of everything. If it's something legal, they take care of it, and they get me going in the right direction. And so the only way that I can get all this done is to have good people on my team. And Gordon and Associates in Freetown, they're the ones that make it possible for me to be able to do all the things that I'm doing. Okay. And then my team at my organization, Empower Sierra Leone Foundation. I have Aminata on the ground. She's out making sure things get done. I'm here, and we're still doing all the good work while I'm here because I have a good team in place. I have OJ in the village, and he's making sure, we have teachers in our village that aren't being paid. They're not credentialed, so they're teaching from their heart. They're getting out there and they're volunteering their time to teach, and we're not getting paid. Yeah. So we've implemented a program where we're offering a stipend to the unpaid teachers. Right now we have 28 teachers that are unpaid in our village that are getting a stipend. 28 teachers at 4 schools.
Wow, that's amazing. And so there was a lot there. I want to drill down into one of the things that you talked about. You mentioned, of course, that you're getting stipend for teachers. You also mentioned some of the other work that you're doing, at least just to get things moving. When we spoke earlier, you mentioned one of the initiatives that you started with dental health.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about, like, there was some tangible things that you did? And I just want to remind everybody that your first trip to Sierra Leone was last November. This is June 16th of 2020. So this is within 6 months. You've done all the things that you're talking about. But this specific initiative I thought was important because I like the force multiplier element of it. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that and what you're doing there.
Oh, absolutely. So when you say force multiplier, there are actually 2 different programs there. One is nursing students, and one is the children with the dental hygiene. So how this all came about is, laugh at me. So in January, before I went back to Sierra Leone to visit, I had my biannual dental checkup. Sure. And the dentist had they gave me a couple of these little samples, and I said, you know what? I'm going back to Sierra Leone. Do you have any samples I can give to the kids? Because you're giving these out, and you see, so they gave me a bunch. Sure. Unfortunately, those got lost in a suitcase that was not recovered. So when I went back in May, when I just went back last month, I went onto Amazon. I went onto another company and I ordered them. Sure. I don't want to be plugging somebody's company. Yeah. And I ordered it, and so I got a box for about I want to say like 75 of these dental kits. Toothbrush, toothpaste, and floss. And I thought, oh, what a great thing we can do to some of the young people. We could teach them how to take care of their teeth using dental hygiene. And in the meantime, we had also started a program with nursing. We had gotten one nursing student in January, and she actually started her program the 1st of February. So we helped her to get her national ID, open a bank account, and gave her scholarship money so that it would pay her tuition and transportation to and from school. And it covered her uniforms and supplies and everything. And so we had this one nursing student. I go, but she's going to need other students to support her.
Right.
So for me, it's all about mentorship, and when you have a community, it makes things easier. When you're going through this program by yourself, it could be done, and she's doing it, but it would be much easier when you have other people that understand what you're going through. And so then that's when we decided to offer scholarships to other students in the medical field, not necessarily nursing, but in the young women in the nursing field as a part of our Empower Her program. And so we just recently got an additional 8 young women that are going to be starting the program. Their program starts in September. But until that program starts, we're getting them involved in some of the other initiatives. We'd like to have at least once a month where they get involved in something that the organization is doing. And so for the month of June, we did 2 things. Last week, we went to the nursing school and we provided, what do we want to call them? Self-care kits for 30 of the female nursing students at the school. And so a couple of the women that have just signed up to be and got accepted into our scholarship program, they went with our team and we went to this nursing school and we gave these self-care kits to 30 of the nursing students. And so that was their way of coming and being involved, keeping them involved. And then this week is where we had the dental hygiene. We had 65 students, young children, where we got one of the students from that medical college where we went to give the the self-care kits. So we got a dental hygienist to come from that school to go to this school to teach the young children how to brush, when to brush and what it does, and how to floss, when to floss. And they taught them about germs and bacteria and why you're doing it and how to strengthen your teeth and how often you should brush and all the benefits of it. So they're teaching these young children that, and we gave out these dental kits. And the reason why I wanted these students to be involved is because then I don't expect them to all of a sudden when they graduate to say, oh, now I'm going to give back. We're not only telling them that we're expecting them to give back, but we're giving them opportunity to give back. We're working with them to show them, here's how we give, and you can find a way like this to give as well. Be involved in the programs that we have and that we're delivering. And so they're learning how to do it. Right. Because when you've never been in a position to give back, not everybody knows what giving back looks like. And so we're not just telling them what it looks like, we're showing them, we're involving them. And so now they're a part of the community. They're giving back, they're getting mentorship, they're getting to be a part of a community. And some of our communities join and they merge. And I can tell you about some of the other programs when we start talking about and how we use the programs to interconnect. Everything is interconnected. So when you have impact one place, I'm going to show you how something you do in one place can impact many different areas.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that you emphasize the fact that you're helping people understand the importance of giving back and how to give back. I think that's really important. I think a lot of people tell people to do it, but maybe don't show people how they can do it. And as I mentioned, I've had many conversations with folks who are going through the process that you're going through or have already gone through it. And there's always a complaint about not being shown what to do. And so, I mean, and I do want to talk about a little bit about like, how did you come up with your plan, right? Is this something that you already knew because of the fact that you work with startups a ton? Like, because, I think you mentioned that there were some people in your cohort that didn't know where to get started. They wanted to invest, but didn't know where to get started. So was this based on your background, obviously advising startups? And then how did you develop your plan? So that's a kind of two-part question.
So I had a general plan of what I wanted to achieve.
Okay.
But what ended up happening is everything it does in life. Your plans and the way reality is are not necessarily the same. So this plan has been organic. It's kind of grown based on the situation that it was. So what I wanted to do in the village, I could see, there's no infrastructure for that. So I thought, oh, I could just rent a building and do this. And I got there and thought, oh no, there's no building to be rented. Have to build one. So, but in the meantime, there are buildings in Freetown. So when I went back in January, we found a location, we rented a building. And so we're still going to do the vocational training center in the village, but in Freetown where there's the space for it. So we rented a building and we're providing entrepreneurial training there. But while we were getting the building ready, when I went back in January, it was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. And one of the young entrepreneurs who's actually our photographer, videographer said, oh, you should have a pitch party. And so my ear, not understanding what he said at first, I thought he said beach party. And I go, oh yeah, beach party sounds like fun, but what does that have to do with what we're doing?
Right.
So when he repeated, he said pitch party. I go, perfect. So we decided on Monday night, on Tuesday, we decided we were going to have a pitch party. And that pitch party was going to be Friday because I was leaving on Saturday to go back home.
Sure.
So we didn't have a lot of time to plan this. On Tuesday, we decided to have a pitch party. On Friday night, when we had the pitch party, we had over 35 entrepreneurs show up.
Wow. Okay.
So we kind of put it out there. Here's what we're doing. And so I had to kind of develop, okay, what are we going to do with this? So it was all kind of last minute. It was, fortunately I had the expertise and I knew what needed to happen.
Sure.
So putting it together at the last minute, we're running around getting things printed, we're getting the room set up, we're ordering food, we're doing all this stuff. And we got it done and we had the entrepreneurs there. And right now, and then I coached, my goal, my commitment was to try to get funding for all the entrepreneurs that were there.
Okay.
And that was my commitment. But then after after everybody pitched and I went through and did an assessment of what was pitched. So funding had to have a different meaning. It didn't necessarily mean debt or equity. It wasn't necessarily direct financial support. We had to find what some of these entrepreneurs needed.
Sure.
A lot of them, they had a great idea, but they didn't have a business. So the next step was then I started coaching. And I provided, I did like this 30-day coaching, what do we call it? 30 tips to try to help get their businesses to the point where maybe they might be ready for funding or ready to start.
Okay.
And not all of them actually needed financial support. We have some that needed to know how to market. They already had what they needed. What they needed to know was how to market or how to get my product out to the community, how to get new customers. They didn't need to take on a loan. They didn't need to take on an equity partner. Sure. They just needed to be able to sell their product.
Right.
And some of them needed financial, and they still do financial support. But it's tough to get financial support when your business isn't registered. So we had to walk them through the process. Let's get your business registered. Now let's get a business bank account. As you're familiar, in Sierra Leone, not a lot of people want to use the bank.
Yep.
And so it's a very, very highly cash community. Everybody does business by cash.
Yep.
No matter how much you go in with big stacks of, backpacks full of bills,
yes.
of cash to pay for stuff, because you can't just go and use your debit card, your credit. In the States, I very rarely carry cash.
Right.
I use my debit card, my credit card. I pay for stuff online, have things delivered. It's not the same way. You need cash when you go anywhere. And so getting them nobody's going to give you a loan, or nobody's going to give equity in your company if you don't have a business bank account. They're not going to be running stuff through your personal account.
Absolutely.
So those are two of the biggest hurdles we had to cross in the coaching, was getting your business registered and getting business bank accounts. And I'm still getting complaints. Well, the bank, they want all this stuff. And I go, yeah, that's typically what banks want. And opening bank accounts in Sierra Leone was challenging.
Yes.
I have one that I started in January, and here we are in June. That bank account still isn't open.
Yeah, it's difficult unless you have someone on the ground in the bank. And unless you're already a citizen too, I think it makes it a little bit more difficult, right? But I think that if anybody's going to make it happen, it's you. So
Well, I do have a business bank account that's fully open, and I have a personal account. And what I had to do was get my national ID.
Yep.
And then I did get a 1-year visa so that I can come and go as I please without having to get a visa every time until I get my citizenship.
Nice. Okay. And so, I think so. And so you mentioned, so what I heard from you, right, in terms of how you were able to get things going so quickly is you already had an infrastructure for how it's supposed to look. You just had to figure out how to make the framework for Sierra Leone, right? A pitch competition. You've been to pitch competitions before. You know what it takes. Obviously, you need to feed people. You need to have a room big enough, etc. Now, what does that look like in Sierra Leone? Printing flyers, etc. How did you promote it? You said you had 30 entrepreneurs there to pitch their business. How did you get in front of people? Because the traditional means of promoting things in the States doesn't look the same way as in Sierra Leone. So what did you do to get people out for the pitch competition?
First thing, there was no charge.
Okay.
And then, so, at that point I had made connections. I made connections when I was there.
Sure.
In December, and I made connections when I went back in January. So the people that I knew, they were all posting it on their Facebook and their Instagram. So my person created a flyer and he put it out there. He created a Google sheet so they can go in and sign up and register. And you would be amazed at how many people want to be entrepreneurs. So when you have the entire country, so when you have a community that are desperate, they're starved for opportunity. And here's somebody say, well, here's an opportunity to be an entrepreneur and to pitch your business, and you could possibly get funding for your business. I don't think it's hard to get people to show up.
Yep.
Even with just 3 days notice. So we just put it out there and people started showing up. And it actually ended up being over 35 people that pitched their business. It's about 30 or so of them that I coached. And they're still in a coaching group. I don't do the daily coaching that I was doing before. But and even with the coaching, that posed some challenge. So I was doing everything in writing, and I realized the reason I didn't get as much participation in the group as I wanted is because I didn't do it verbal. So I needed to do audio or do videos. And so now that I know, I can still do the same information, but instead of just putting it just in writing, I can do an audio version or even video version, as long as they can hear it. But then I have my program director is actually going to do it in Creole.
Okay, nice.
And so we're going to set it up so that they get it multiple ways. And I think the participation will be much better.
Yeah, this is awesome. And so on that note of helping these companies get investment ready, are you taking outside investment from folks, or how are you facilitating the process once they are investment ready? Do you have plans there? Are you currently doing something? What does that look like?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Now, this is where the diaspora comes in.
Yep.
So just from the group that I went there with, and I know there are other groups, prior groups, and then future groups that are coming, they want opportunities, but they don't know how to go out and find them. So once I've already vetted these entrepreneurs and these opportunities, then so now I'm going to be matching investors with entrepreneurs, and they can offer mentorship, they can offer money. It's not just financial, but it's also the non-financial parts of making a business successful. And I've gone out and I've found other investments that aren't actually through the program, but through my program, there are several components to it. So an investor coming in cannot obtain more than 30% interest, because it's not about the diasporans coming in and taking over somebody's business because they have the cash.
Right.
That's not how this program is going to work. So they can have up to 30%. So if the entrepreneurs are asking for, let's say, $10,000 in investments, and the entrepreneur can only have up to 30%, we're going to have to show that their business is worth $30,000.
Right.
You can't just, and so that's where the challenge is. The funds needed are great, but they don't have equity. So a lot of equity partnership isn't necessarily the right way right now, but that's why we're working with them to get their business up to the point where now your business is worth 30,000, and you may or may not need that equity partnership, but a lot of them want it and they need it to scale.
Yep, absolutely. It's required in a lot of cases.
Uh-huh.
You know, and one of the things that I don't know how much people are aware, but a business in Sierra Leone, especially a brick and mortar business, you know, like a physical business, requires a lot more upfront investment. Maybe not the total amount of money, but in terms of the amount that you have to spend versus what you're going to make back than in other places. So, for example, you know, you may have to buy a generator to keep the lights on, and then you have to fuel the generator to keep the generator running, right?
Uh-huh.
These are things that I don't think many people really think about when it comes to starting a business in Sierra Leone. And to that point, you and I had in our first conversation, you had done some research on a business that can be started, and you had numbers. And it just came to mind. I don't even remember what the business was, but you had mentioned to me
Poultry farming.
Poultry farming. Yes. Can we talk through the research you've done? I mean, look, again, November was the first trip there, and you already learned about this business model, and you can speak to it intelligently and how people can generate income from it. This is just an idea. People ask on these calls all the time, what kind of business can I start if I go to Sierra Leone? What kind of business can I invest in? Can we talk about the numbers on the poultry farming?
Oh, I don't have them right in front of me, and my
Okay.
old brain isn't going to let me remember. But right offhand, what I
Sure.
recall is because you talked to me either the same day or the day after I had gone out to visit the poultry farm and talked to the poultry farm and got the specific numbers. So
Okay.
that is, I do have a business partner that we're going in 50-50 to do poultry, but we're also doing vegetables. So we're doing poultry and vegetable farming together.
Sure.
But from what I recall, it was about a $40,000 investment for 3,000 hen and the layers, and you build the hen house and with the generator and the feeder and all the stuff. The total investment is roughly between 35 and 40,000 to generate revenues of about 220,000 a year.
So one $40,000 investment with upkeep, of course, to generate 200 plus,
but that's
annually. Gross,
and
right?
the expenses were minimal. So
Sure.
the expenses were probably less than $20,000 a year.
Okay. So 180 net or so, minus the initial first year, if you do it right, minus that other 40, that's 140 net, right? If you minus those two amounts, that's, you know, that's a huge upside for a business, right?
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, and there aren't very many businesses you can invest 40K and generate that kind of income back. So yeah, I mean, I just thought that was a really important note when we spoke that day. I was like, I didn't know about this. I do know a poultry farmer, and I do know people who grow vegetables, etc. And I have land. I have 5 acres of land. And so this was something that I'm strongly considering now after you and I had this conversation. And so, I think we covered a wide range of topics just around what you're doing on the continent, specifically in Sierra Leone, and what people can do to participate. And we've also talked about the citizenship process. So you are eligible to receive your citizenship in November of this coming year, correct?
Yes, I think the trip is actually scheduled for late December this year.
That's right. Yes, it is. It is scheduled for late December. I had always been advocating it for it to be in December because you get a different experience coming in December. But I've heard other things from other people because of the cost of flights, etc. They prefer it to be, bless you, in the off season. But I think, well, you were there in December, but many of the folks who haven't been will get a chance to see a different Sierra Leone, right? Because many of us are there in December, folks like myself who go every December. And prior to living on the continent, I was going every December for 4 years before I moved. Okay, so anyway, you're eligible for your citizenship at the end of this year. You obviously have a number of initiatives that you have going on right now. You mentioned that you're going to start the poultry farm and vegetables. You have the nonprofit, and then you have like all these subsidiaries because you learned that you just set up one business and you can have many businesses. I thought that was a really important point, and many people may not be aware of that you can just have one business and you can add as many new business lines as you want to that business. That is a very unique thing. You don't have to categorize it like you do in the United States with different tax codes, etc. It's a very business friendly environment in that way, right? As long as you know what you're doing. Okay, so we covered a lot. I want to ask you about just your overall experience doing business in Sierra Leone. I mean, it's November till now. But what would you say some of the challenges that you saw and that you worked to mitigate once you decided and launched everything that you're doing?
Okay. So for me, the biggest challenge was patience, because as you can see, I like getting things done.
Sure.
And things work a little slower there.
Sure.
And they have a lot of different rules, and the technology isn't quite as advanced as what we have here. So the first thing was packing my patience with me. I pack lots of patience every time I go there. It's like, okay, just it's a whole mindset. Wipe your brain clean and go. You're on a different mindset.
Sure.
So what I do when I visit is anytime I see a challenge, I think, oh, that's a challenge for somebody. That's an opportunity. I have somebody that's approaching me about transportation. When I walk by and I see these people traveling with no dignity, they're crowded on these little vans, these little buses, and the lines are really long, just waiting to get on one of those crowded little hot vans where there's no AC. And so a couple of people have approached me about transportation. So that's actually one of the things that I'm working on, getting all the details on what it would take to have a transportation company. And again, that's going to be another opportunity. So you know what? For me, every time I see a challenge, to me, a challenge just means an opportunity. If somebody's struggling with something, that's an opportunity for somebody to invest and make life easier for others and make your pockets a little heavier.
Sure.
Win-win, right?
Absolutely.
And what I can promise you is that in Sierra Leone, there are lots and lots of challenges. Lots and lots of challenges. You just have to pick one and stay focused, because it's easy to get sidetracked because there's so many things going on. Which one next?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so on that note, what advice would you give to someone? So, and I mean, in two parts, right? So many people who are thinking about getting their citizenship after they've done the DNA, now there are many companies that they're able to test their DNA ancestry back to Sierra Leone, and they'll probably find out in different ways that they can get their citizenship in Sierra Leone. So one, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about doing that? And then two, someone who's going through that path and wants to start a business, what advice do you give to someone who's looking to start a business in Sierra Leone as well?
Okay, so one, for those that are looking to get citizenship, make sure you're doing it for the right reason. What I mean is, anytime you're going to make a major life change, you have to have passion for it. And it's going to be the same thing for a business. If you don't have passion for it, you're not going to be successful at it. You're not going to be happy with it. If once you get citizenship, you're not going to be happy. You're only going to find fault and challenges. And problems, instead of seeing opportunities and being happy to be there. You just have to understand life is going to be very different from what you know here, because it is. And expecting people to change to suit you is not going to be the way to go. So you're going to have to fit into your environment and be prepared to make changes. Be prepared to live life a little differently. And you'll find, when you accept your environment for what it is, you'll find that you can find peace and happiness. And that's my advice. Go in with your eyes wide open and go in for the right reasons. Now, as far as business, it's kind of the same as here or with anywhere. You don't go someplace and say, oh, I want to do that because there's the opportunity to make lots of money. If you're not going to enjoy doing it, if this isn't something you could see yourself doing, don't. Look for something that you can find passion for, that you don't mind taking a risk for it, and look for something that somebody else needs. Because anybody can have an idea. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's how will that idea serve others? Who else is interested in it? Who can it help? Who would be willing to pay for it? just because it's a good idea to you doesn't mean that somebody else would be willing to pay for it. And that's key to any entrepreneurial venture.
Well put. And so finally, well, two more things that I want to talk to you about. One is, how can people support the NGO and the work that you're doing in Sierra Leone?
Oh, wow. So we're looking for mentors, we're looking for volunteers, and we're looking for teachers. So we do have the Entrepreneur Training Center in Freetown. It's right off the Allentown Highway. And we're training in different vocational courses. Right now we have tailoring and Gara tie-dyeing, and we're going to be starting up the bookkeeping, accounting, and office admin. And so we can always, and then we just found somebody that's going to teach coding and basic computer skills to do social media marketing. So I'm always looking for people that have an expertise in some area to possibly teach a course. So if you have an expertise, we're absolutely looking for talent and expertise, and we're always looking for dollars. We're looking for supplies. And so one of the things you talked about, what did you say? Cross multiplying the
force
skills.
multiplier.
There you go. So in our tailoring class, when we're teaching the individuals how to sew, one of the things, there are two things that we're doing that's also going to involve the village and getting things out to the kids. One of the things they're going to learn to sew are the reusable period pads. And so they're going to make the period pads. They're learning a skill how to sew. And then we get to take these out to the village and provide them to the young girls to help work on period poverty. And then the other thing they're going to be learning to sew is school uniforms. So we've been supporting the building of a new school in the Matwell village. And one of the things I committed to was getting new uniforms for these kids. So we're going to make the uniforms at the training center that goes out to the village. And we want the uniforms to be local fabric, local colors, instead of these Western type uniforms. We want the uniforms to reflect what their mothers and grandmothers and their aunties and everybody's wearing in the village, instead of standing out, because they're not Western. So why dress like they are? So it's just finding a way to make all the programs, again, work together. So it's cohesive. And
okay. Well, those are the ways that how folks can get involved, and that's how the capital will be deployed. Now, where can they find you online, or any of the and then the NGO or any of the stuff that you're doing? Where can they find it so that they can participate and support?
Oh, absolutely. Right now we have a Facebook page. Our website is still under construction. Hopefully within the next few weeks, we're going to have the website up and you can make donations directly on the website. But the website is Empower. It's actually going to be empowerslf.org.
EmpowerSLF.org.
Let me double check to make sure it's Empower S and not EmpowerHerSLF.org. That's what it actually is. Empower Her.
EmpowerHerSLF.org.
Kind of like Empower Herself without the second E.
Got it. There you go. And that'll be in the description below. So if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching it elsewhere, just go to YouTube. The link will be in the YouTube description here. Anything that I missed? Anything you want to mention before we go?
Oh my gosh. We've covered a lot. And let's see, I've talked about looking for teachers and looking for mentors and looking for investors. And so, that's the main thing.
Okay.
That's the main thing.
Well, I'm glad we covered it all. Look, I as I said, I was very impressed by what you were up to and the time frame that you're doing it in. There's a couple of folks watching who've gotten their citizenship in previous years. And I think the model that you have followed, I think, is one that others can emulate. And so that's really why I wanted you to be on the live stream, so you could tell your story, and so others can find a way that they can do their own version of this. We're trying to get more folks who are getting their citizenship and going somewhere else to come back to Salon. And so, even though, I love Ghana too, I'm a big fan of Ghana as well. I go to Ghana all the time.
I'm supporting a school there as well.
Nice. And so, yeah, I just think, you know, there's a ton of folks already who have recently left Ghana that are assisting in developing Ghana. We need some folks to help assist in developing Sierra Leone so that we all want to go back more often, and there aren't so many people who want to leave, right? Because that's one of the issues we have. 75% after, well, a recent survey showed 75% of those surveyed said they want to leave Sierra Leone and never come back. And that's because there are these challenges that are in place, some of the things that you've talked about today, and there's not enough of us coming back and, you know, helping Sierra Leone get back to its rightful place on the world stage. So I appreciate what you're doing, and that's why I wanted you to be on this live stream to talk about it and help to get other people activated and involved. So again, guys, if you haven't already, check the links in the description. You can check out what Ursula is up to. I am going to update the YouTube link or the description on YouTube with the link to empower her. I want to make sure you guys have that if I don't already have it in the description. So that'll be there. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Share this with anybody you know who's thinking about getting their citizenship in Sierra Leone, who's in the process of doing it, who's thinking about starting a business in Sierra Leone. Forward this to them. Anybody who's thinking about investing in Sierra Leone, you should send this to them as well. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're notified every time a new video comes out. So with that, guys, I want to say thank you for watching. I will see you all on the next live stream. Bye, guys.